Welcome back to the 3&D podcast. I'm your host, Justin Genus. We're here with Sennet Drawdy. He's a friend of mine from church, and he's going to talk about the Central Division with me for the first of our division previews going up in the 6 weeks leading up to the NBA season. So, Sennet, let's start with your favorite team and your favorite player of all time.
Okay, my favorite team is the Milwaukee Bucks, and my favorite player of all time has to be Giannis Antetokounmpo because of that. He's the reason I started liking the Bucks about 4 years ago.
That's awesome. He's a really talented player, and I think he's part of the reason this division is so exciting for the future. In the past few years, none of these teams have been ultra competitive. I think the last time we saw a real championship threat come out of the Central was maybe the Pacers. You think maybe the Pacers or the Bulls with Derrick Rose, Pacers with Paul George, but since then, a lot of these teams have been in a sort of soft rebuild phase, like minorly competitive. And I think part of that is the fact stems from the fact that there are a lot of small market teams, with the exception of Chicago, the Chicago Bulls. All the teams in this division, which let me list those now: the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons, Milwaukee Bucks, Indiana Pacers, and hold on, what's the other one?
You said Bucks, Pacers, Pistons, Bulls, Cavs.
Oh, Cleveland Cavaliers.
So are we counting the Cavs as the teams that have been successful and made it far lately? Because they seem to do that. A lot in the last few years.
Yeah, I almost forgot about them. It's
Yeah.
funny how you become an afterthought when LeBron leaves your team.
Yeah.
But really, these teams, none of them have been super competitive. But Sennet, what do you think? How do you think the small marketness, so to speak, of these teams plays into their team building strategies?
I think really one thing that having a small market, it can kind of serve as a bit of a disadvantage in a way, is kind of when it comes to free agents. So the Bucks, Pacers, Pistons, Bulls, Cavs, most of those teams normally don't have the cachet to attract these big time free agents. So that means they either have to overpay or they have to build through the draft, which is what the Bucks and you've seen the Pacers and the Bulls do. But it's just hard for them to get those guys. Like even you got guys like LaMarcus Aldridge, like kind of mid-tier stars like that they just struggle to get attention. I remember a few years back when the Bucks they hit free agency. Greg Monroe was a free agent. And they tried to go after bigger names, and he was the one they had to end up getting, and they had to overpay him. So I think that's just kind of the struggle with the small markets sometimes, is that they lose out on those big-time free agents, except for the Cavs. They had the hometown hero come back, but the rest of them, it's sometimes tough.
Exactly. And I think, but what you also notice with all these franchises, every one of these cities has a huge love for their team. Maybe the Bucks, are the only team in this division that has struggled with that in any recent time period. But all of them
they got a new arena coming out, so hopefully that will spark some excitement.
Yeah, and you'll notice that even if you look back in NBA history, at least one or two of these teams has always been competitive, but that has not been the case outside of LeBron. And it's really, the Cavs were really LeBron in most people's minds.
Right.
Recently.
Yep.
But
it's fair to wonder though if LeBron was from somewhere else other than Akron, Ohio, or the Cavs. What are we thinking of this Cavs franchise? Because if he doesn't come a few years back, he doesn't make the decision. If he was born in, say, LA, he never comes to Cleveland, and they're stuck with. They got Kyrie and Love. Or they ever make it past the conference championship? It's just fair to wonder.
Yeah, and you think about the fact if LeBron never comes, then Love never shows up, and the Cavs have Wiggins, who, in most people's mind, has been quite a disappointment.
Yes, and overpaid now.
Yep, way overpaid. But Sennet, you made a great point with the fact that these teams who have, let's say, basketball pedigree from the past, one thing they do trust is their in-house scouting and their management. So, as a result, what you see in this division is a lot of young talent, probably more than any other division in the league.
Yeah.
So, let's start with this. Besides Giannis and Victor Oladipo, who both Giannis is only 23. Oladipo is just now about to enter his prime. Which player who is let's say 27 or younger in this division do you think is most likely to break out this year?
I mean, that's tough. I'm a big Wendell Carter fan in Chicago. I really love his game. I thought he had a great summer league. The only question I have with him is him and Markkanen. How do they fit? Because I think Markkanen's best full-time fit is at the 5, and Carter needs to play the 5 too. So how will that intersect this year? I don't know if he'll be able to break out. Chris Middleton, he is 27. I think he really impressed in the playoffs. I think he's really someone that if he gets better defensively, because everyone calls him a 3&D player, and I watched him all of last year, he didn't defend very well. So if Bledsoe and DiVincenzo and some of those other guys can take the pressure off Giannis, and hopefully Middleton, maybe he can focus some more on the defensive aspect, so he can really become a complete player and a great second option to Giannis. He'd probably be my pick, but there's so many other options too.
Right. You check. I like Middleton's game, and I think he's the closest thing you have to. He's right on the edge of stardom.
Yeah.
If I had to go with a guy, Miles Turner, I think, is set to have a pretty big year. The Pacers are reloaded, and I on paper, and I think in practice even, they'll be the 4th best team in the Eastern Conference behind the 3 Giants in the Atlantic. And Oladipo, he opens up so many opportunities for this team. Yeah, he's going to be in the running for MVP next year. And Miles Turner, down year last year, but he's been out there. He's been working with Team USA this summer, and I feel like he's raring to go, and he'll be a huge threat to be that second star the Pacers need to launch themselves into contention. Maybe, not likely, but it's possible they could push for a conference finals run.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. They're well coached. I mean, getting back to Turner, really, they say he's in much better shape this summer. He wasn't in great shape last year. I mean, really, after his rookie year, we were all really excited about what he could become. I mean, he's still super young. He's 24, but last year was a bit of a disappointment. Sabonis came in, and honestly, in the playoffs versus the Cavs, Sabonis outplayed him. I mean, Sabonis was better than Turner, and I mean, he's got all the skills you're looking for. He can be a rim protector. He could shoot threes. He does a lot of things well, but he just has to take that next step. And I think he's definitely a definite breakout candidate.
Right. Let's look, and I think the only team really lacking in talent, in a serious amount of talent, or young talent, is Detroit. True, they have probably the only established star besides Oladipo and Giannis in Andre Drummond, but
plus Blake Griffin.
Oh my goodness! I totally forgot. See,
I forget him too sometimes. Eric.
That's the thing. You'll forget he's even on the team because he's injured and so injured all the time. But
no, hold up. I don't mean to interrupt you, but no. One question I was going to ask: the Blake Griffin trade last year. Who would you rather have right now? If you could go back, would you rather have Tobias Harris, who's younger by 5-6 years younger, has a better? I mean, he doesn't get injured as much, or would you rather have Blake Griffin with his contract? I don't know. I think that's a tough question. I really do.
I think that the Pistons would have rather had Tobias Harris, but Stan Van Gundy, he was in a position where it was win or get fired. Right. So at least from his basketball operations job. So that trade was rushed, and I think it was pretty foolish.
And now Dwayne Casey's a coach there, and so he didn't even get to see it through. So
yeah, he's got his work cut out for him for sure. Let's talk a bit about the Bucks in particular. You're a pretty big Bucks fan. So what do you think with Jabari Parker out? I think they made a pretty serious commitment this year to Giannis, and I mean they've been building around him already. But what do you think they need to do to really push forward, take that next step? Because they pushed the Celtics to 7 games in the playoffs, but that Celtics team was missing an elite player in Kyrie Irving and a superstar in Gordon Hayward. So that might have been fool's gold, and they didn't, and they still didn't win.
Right. I really think I went back and watched all 82 games of theirs last year, and I really think the big key with this team is there's two keys really: consistency and defensive just awareness. I mean, the last year the defense. I mean, there'd be games against the Nuggets. They give up 140 points. They give up 35 corner threes. I mean, Gary Harris was standing in the corner every single time. And I mean, just so lack of defensive awareness by almost every player is incredible. Eric Bledsoe really struggled on that end. Chris Middleton struggled. Thon Maker and Henson. I mean, all those guys struggled. General. I mean, they have to be better on defense for them to have any chance, especially against. I mean, really a Celtics team that only is going to have internal improvement, plus Hayward and Kyrie back, and just consistency. I mean, you have games where some guys would step up, but Maker just struggled all regular season. Middleton really got to go into the playoffs, but I don't know. They just need on paper. This team has a lot of talent. It really does. But Bledsoe is going to have to be better. Middleton's going to have to defend better. And really, they need to count on steps from Maker, DiVincenzo, some of the young guys to make up for the absence of Parker and Lopez, who they brought in, Ilyasova. Hopefully, those guys can be a solid veteran presence. And the coach Mike Budenholzer is. I mean, everything about him sounds better. But we just got to see. We got to see some results first.
Yeah, I was actually about to bring that up. Mike Budenholzer, who famously brought the team basketball Hawks all the way to a 60-win season
That
that
was incredible.
infamously ended in a 4-game sweep.
Yeah.
Budenholzer, he definitely knows how to create a team that will be consistent, and they emphasize team basketball.
Right.
And he's never quite had a superstar. Like
No.
Joe Johnson, right? All
I
star,
mean, who would you
right?
say the best player on the Hawks was? I mean, would you say the best players that he ever coached was? Yeah, Joe Johnson. I mean,
Mm,
Horford, Millsap. I mean,
I'd say Millsap's a little better than Horford. Was a little better than Horford, but I don't. I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
they were a win by committee sort of team, but in my opinion, it is impossible for you to play quote unquote team basketball and win an NBA championship. Even the Spurs, who are the sort of originators, the most famous example of good team fundamental basketball,
Right.
had 2, 3 superstars at
Yeah.
any given time.
Yeah. No, and actually, that's a good point because that is my other thing that the Bucks have to improve on if they really want to take the next step. Is too many times last year it just became one-on-one basketball. It would be, I mean, Giannis would have the ball 3 straight possessions. Chris Middleton would come down and ISO step back jumper. Eric Bledsoe would drive to the rim, and there was not enough passing. There was, I mean, all the collective talent they have. They're the most talented team in this division by far. But just the cohesiveness and there was just too much isolation basketball last year, and that just doesn't work. Especially, I mean, if you don't have guys like LeBron and Kyrie, you just got one, and that was too much of a burden on Giannis.
That's right. Um, well, let's move off the Bucks for a minute and talk about the Cavaliers, who at the beginning of this episode I actually forgot they were in the division, which I mean, sort of speaks to what people are really expecting from them. But the Cavs shouldn't be. They're not going to be the worst team in the conference like they were before. They're not going to fall straight down to the bottom of the league like the last time LeBron left.
Right.
They have Kevin Love, obviously, and they sort of made their claim. We're going to try and be competitive in this relatively weak Eastern Conference by
Yep.
signing him up for years. What, 4 years?
It was 4 years, 120 million. Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's really Dan Gilbert saying, "Hey, LeBron, you can leave, but I can still put a competitive team together without you." I think that's been his thing for years. So I mean, I think you can make the case it's a mistake to try to be good, though. I mean, they're
yeah.
top 10 protected pick. If it fall in the top 10, it goes to the Hawks. So I mean, wait, no. If they're one of the 10 worst teams, they get to keep their pick. But if they're
Right.
better, the Hawks get their pick. So I mean, I think that's some incentive to tank. But obviously, Gilbert has some other ideas.
Right. And then you also have Colin Sexton, who was their top 10 pick this year, the 8th pick.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I think that he is not. I don't think he's ready to take this team straight to the top. I do
No.
think that he has a very good shot at winning Rookie of the Year because he's one of those players that has He reminds me of Marcus Smart, not in his play style, but in his intensity and his
Right.
level of passion.
Yep.
Um, I think the best comparison right away would be a less athletic, less consistent Russell Westbrook. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a good. I mean, Eric Bledsoe is a name that some people threw around. I can kind of see some of the resemblances there.
yeah,
I mean, their body types are much different, but
he's not a great shooter yet. He's kind of short,
no.
but he's really good finisher around the rim, and he's just so intense. It seems like he's giving 150% at all times. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
hard to describe his competitiveness. I mean, until you've actually seen him, it's just an infectiousness, and it's hard not to root for him.
exactly, and that's why I think even if he isn't the best rookie right out of the gate, like that'll probably be Aiton or Luka Doncic or
Right.
Wendell Carter Jr. even.
Yeah.
Um, I do think that he has the narrative going for him and trying to become the new star for that city. And with his intensity and his passion for the game, like everybody loved that clip. It was what 3-on-5 against which team when he was playing
It
for
was
Bama?
Minnesota. It was Minnesota,
Right, against
and
Minnesota when he had
and
he just
yep,
scored. He just tore him up.
yeah.
And I think that will really push him towards rookie of the being at least a top 3 candidate for rookie of the year this season.
I think that's a great point because coming into the draft, really, I thought Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I thought he was a better prospect, and I still do long term. But I think you make a great point in talking about his competitiveness and how the city can I don't know, bond around him in a way, rally around
Yeah.
him. Yep. And because I don't know if you can do that with Gilgeous-Alexander. He's not the same kind of player. Sexton, I mean, the 3-on-5 really kind of has the he just has that mentality of I'm going to put the city on my back, and I think that's what the city really needs. So you make a good point.
Yeah. Do you think he'll start at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I do. I think so. I mean, you've got George Hill there, but maybe they move Hill to shooting guard. I just feel, I don't know. Do you think they start Hill over them? I can't see them benching him for that long. I just can't.
Yeah, I think it'll be maybe a month and a half before they give him the reins
Right.
because Hill is not it's not like George Hill's a bad player.
No.
He's 6'3", he's got an incredibly long wingspan.
Yep. Can shoot threes.
Exactly, he shoots the ball and he is a vet. He's still one of your top veteran point guards in the league.
Right.
That's not like a star or anything. So
But
as
he did
far
that
as
with De'Aaron. No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, I was just going to
yeah, go
say
ahead.
Hill did that with De'Aaron Fox last year, and that was kind of a bit of a kind of a rocky transition. And they went from Fox starting one game to Hill starting the other, and I mean that was just the Kings coaching staff. So
Yeah.
hopefully the Cavs just kind of maybe ease Sexton into him and give him the reins over the second half of the year.
Oh yeah, that's speaking of coaching. Do you guys guys? I'm so used to talking to multiple people, but
Yeah.
do you think that Ty Lue is this like the year that or is this like his proving ground? Because all you've heard for the past few years, whenever something's going wrong in Cleveland, it's the supporting cast, or Ty Lue's not a good coach, or Ty Lue doesn't have control over his players. Um, if you were him, what would your goal be this year? Would it because you could argue that they need to be competitive, but no one expects them to be great.
Right. I mean, really, for him, I think for him to shed the label that LeBron carried. I mean, he did carry this team, but that he's more than just a friend of LeBron. I think they just got to show him improvement. I mean, I don't think it's a win total they're going to reach. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, if they do, I don't think they'll be super competitive this year. I think really you just want to see improvement from guys like Sexton. You want to see improvement from Chetty Osman, Larry Nance, Ante Zizic, all those guys, and really just that he has a plan, he has an offensive system that they're executing, and that the guys want to play for him.
Right.
This culture without LeBron, hopefully they can start to add more talent and build on that, and maybe get somewhere pretty fast.
Right. I totally agree that I don't think this is the year. This isn't a do or die year for Ty Lue.
No.
But in the coming years, we'll have to see. In the coming seasons, we'll have to see if he can really prove himself as a coach because
right.
He's really an unknown commodity at this moment as far as coaching goes.
Yep.
So let's go to predictions now for these teams' records. We'll say the best. Which team do you? We'll rank the teams, and then we'll say who we think will be the division MVP, so to speak.
Okay.
Also, we'll say I want to say which teams will make the playoffs.
Right. Okay. I mean, do you want to start or should I?
Well, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
I'll roll with the Pacers at number one. I think they will win the division. They will be the
Okay.
fourth best team in the East. Oladipo is has emerged to be a superstar, and I think this year he can make the jump and be make another jump. I should say, be a top
Yeah.
15 player. He's in the conversation for best two. He was in the conversation for the best two way wing in the league this year or this past season.
Without Kawhi, I mean, you can make a solid argument he was the best.
Yeah, he locked up on the perimeter, lots of steals, and he's scoring very efficiently now that he hits the three ball. Plus Turner, they added Tyreek Evans. I don't
Yeah.
see how any team does better than them. Next up, I'd go Bucks. They
Right.
still have Giannis, who is somewhere between what fifth and eighth best player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, he's only going to continue to get better. So, I mean, if you were to say the Kawhi, whether you rank him higher or lower, and Anthony Davis, some of those guys, but he's definitely up there.
Right. So and to me, I just don't see any of the other three teams being better. What we got?
I mean, now, do you have
Cleveland.
any of the other three making the playoffs? I mean, Pistons, Bulls, Cavs.
Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the Cavs will sneak in at the eighth seed.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say honestly, there's probably a better chance of them than the Pistons, just because we haven't seen. I don't. I mean, I think that's totally fair. They've got Love back, and the East is just there's so many open slots. I mean,
Exactly.
it's just it's so wide open compared to the West.
Exactly. I really feel that the Cavs will that everyone on that Cavs roster has a chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
And that'll really motivate them to play hardcore basketball. Kevin Love will, I feel like, get back to his old self a little bit. We'll see him working down low. I don't know
Right.
how. I mean, the league has changed a lot even in the years since he's been that kind of guy. And the
Yeah.
Timberwolves were never successful with him down low, but this supporting cast is still miles better than anything he had the
True. True.
in Minnesota.
I mean,
Last, yeah.
no. I mean, do you agree with the contract extension though? $120 million for. I mean, he just. I mean, Love has definitely his strength. I mean, he's so unique, and maybe he can get back to that Minnesota Kevin Love. But I mean, just a non-switchable big in today's NBA, it's just hard to build your team around him. So that's just kind of my worry with this team.
Yeah, he's not the thing with Love is that if you're going to be competitive, there's someone I think there was someone out there who would have been willing to take a chance and pay him the max, so you have to lock him up. Um
Right.
After that you have Detroit and Chicago. Chicago will be better than Detroit this year. Um Assuming they can find a way to fit Jabari Parker, Markkinen, and Carter together in that
Right.
starting lineup. They have so much offense and not a lot of defense.
I
From
mean, yeah. No, keep going.
from 2 to 4, from Levine up to Markkinen, they are really lacking in that department.
Yeah.
Maybe would you experiment with bringing one of the young guys off the bench?
In Chicago,
Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, I think I would. Okay, so Jabari, I don't know how Jabari Parker's never handled. He did not like coming off the bench last year in Milwaukee. He publicly complained about it. That was not his favorite role. He made that very clear to the media. However, starting him, Levine, and Markkinen together just put so much pressure on Chris Dunn and Wendell Carter, two young guys. I mean, Carter's a rookie to defend at a high level, and it's just hard. I would bring him off the bench. I honestly think if he will buy into that role, just like I mean, we're talking about with Carmelo in Houston and what's going to happen there. If he can buy into that role, I mean, he has all the talent offensively. I mean, he can average 20 a game. He did it 2 years ago. I mean, or 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
yeah.
And I would try bringing off the bench. I just don't know if he's going to accept it. So that's my take.
Yeah. So I guess considering it being pretty unlikely that Parker will really accept his role coming off the bench for this
Right.
team, I would be pretty comfortable saying that the Pistons will be above them. You made a really good argument there, Senate. So who do you have as your what order would you give? Anything different? Any and the MVP pick? I picked Oladipo because I think the Pacers would be a lot better than the Bucks.
Right.
But I definitely hear arguments for Giannis. So which way would you go?
I mean, I honestly went back and forth, but who to put first? I actually enjoy watching the Pacers. I think Tyreek Evans is a really underrated addition. I think he's really good. He was really good last year, and he'll take a lot of pressure off Oladipo. I think you go either way. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if either team wins the division. I just put Bucks first, just because they're my team. But I honestly think the Pacers have a definitely good shot of that. And then for MVP, I just think if Giannis gets any more help, he's going to be so incredible. I think it's only a matter of time before he wins league MVP. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens this year, if Budenholzer can get some more wins out of this team. So, I love Oladipo too. They're two really good candidates. It's hard to root against Giannis, and that's kind of why I side with the Bucks in determining the records.
Right. Well, last thing I want to say really quickly is that Kevin Love, if the Cavs do make the playoffs, if Kevin Love averages, let's say 22 and 12, because he's still a great rebounder,
Yep.
22, 24, and 12, along with Sexton, bringing a lot of attention to that team. Look
Right.
for, there's no official division MVP, but I think he would really be able to earn my nod if he can keep the Cavs competitive.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that would be something to behold. I mean, imagine what he would be, what a presence he'd be in the city of Cleveland as sort of the savior of the basketball. I mean, after LeBron left, and that would be a cool story.
Yeah, especially after so many years of being a scapegoat, him and Ty Lue both.
Yeah.
Well, really glad to have you on, Senate. You're great to talk to about basketball
Thanks for
anytime.
having me
Thank you all for listening to this episode, the Central Division preview. This is going to be the first of 6 episodes about the divisions in the NBA and how we think they'll all shake out over this year and the coming years. We'll try and release one a week going forward because there are 6 weeks until the NBA season starts. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off. Later.